Hello, and thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Ellen Heine, and I will be your host for the presentation. Our speaker today is Neil Magenheim. Neil is the Sales Director at LexisNexis. He is a frequent industry speaker and presents the value of incorporating data, technology, and analytics to provide winning edge in the highly competitive business and practice of law. Before we begin, I want to direct your attention to the chat box located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them there. We'll cover Q&A during the last 15 minutes of the webinar. Handing it over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, everyone, for your time today. Looking forward to our conversation regarding legal analytics and how legal analytics have changed the way law firms practice, compete, and win. Before I get into any of the context of the presentation here, I was thinking about, as I was preparing for our time together, how analytics have profoundly transformed other industries. A couple examples there are the Oakland Athletics, and thinking about the whole Moneyball equation and how that specific instance with the Oakland Athletics and how they looked at data differently has transformed the way professional sports are run. They all have analytics experts now working in every aspect of those organizations. Another interesting, for instance, is Amazon. And Amazon uses big data and analytics to effectively make over 2 million price changes on their site every day. It's not necessarily how many Kindles did we sell today, it's how much do we sell the Kindles for. So there's a lot of different ways that analytics have transformed industries. And before I get into specifics regarding the legal industry, here's another example on how to use big data in a more recent event. So talking about how to use analytics to combat COVID-19. So all these charts and graphs and visualizations are analytics in play. It's really being able to look at big data through the lens of these charts and graphs and walk away making those more informed decisions. Another reason, for instance, is how social analytics are heavily relied on for marketing. So marketers want to look at data. They want to look at insights into what type of content, where, when, why, and how they should be advertising and marketing to their potential consumers to help them with their return on their marketing investment. The legal industry has changed because of analytics. Law firms are benefiting from analytics. Lawyers and attorneys are benefiting from legal analytics to make those more informed, data-driven decisions to help them win. Legal analytics were introduced over 10 years ago, and it's in a more formal way. But if you think about the way that data visualization has existed over time, that is kind of analytics in its infancy form and how it's evolved since. But ultimately, legal analytics allow law firms and attorneys to make more informed, data-driven decisions to help them win business, and help them optimize outcomes on behalf of themselves and their clients. So here are a couple examples of how law firms are actively using analytics and how it has changed the practice and business of law. So when you think about legal analytics, it's being able to make these more informed decisions in near real time. So for example, if one of your clients asks you to price out a matter, you want to be able to use data as a critical component in that formula to help you maximize your profitability, whether it's through the lens of a traditional hourly billable model or non-traditional alternative fixed fee model. There is data that's being used to make a more informed decision there to help increase profitability. Being able to know within seconds your competitors, who the usual suspects are that you're pitching against. So being able to use data to demonstrate your areas of expertise which ultimately helps you differentiate your service offering, is how attorneys are using legal analytics to win business. If you think about how to use data and analytics to optimize outcomes, it's being able to look at data from an early case assessment perspective. What's a threat or risk posed by a certain matter that my client or potential client just got served in? If you're thinking about, if you're on the plaintiff side and you have various contingency-based matters, you want to be able to understand the various elements of taking on that case, using data to see what types of awards have been, what types of damages have been awarded in the past, how long it might take to get to settlement. So as you're thinking about laying out your time, energy, money, and resources, using data to inform that decision to hopefully help hedge your bet a little bit. That's how law firms are using legal analytics to win. Analytics have changed and will continue to change the business and practice of law. We recently did a survey and we talked to many large law firms and small law firms and hundreds in between to get a sense of where they are with legal analytics. 70% of the respondents are using legal analytics, and you can see the breakdown. 80% of them are using legal analytics to help with the business of law perspective, help land cases, help get new clients from a competitive intelligence business development perspective, from a legal project management perspective. You're thinking about pitching and pricing and profitability. 77% of those folks that are using legal analytics use it for their practice of law. So some of those examples that I just went through. We'll dive a little deeper into that as the presentation progresses here. What's interesting is 90% of users in the survey said that legal analytics make them a better, more informed, more efficient, and effective attorney. It's a very important point. We're all being asked to do more with less. Legal analytics allow you to do that at your fingertips. So gone are the days of these more exhaustive research efforts. You could derive these insights in near real time and apply them in your matter. This is interesting also. Over 90% of the respondents are planning on increasing their use of legal analytics in the next 12 months. So legal analytics have arrived, and it's only going to continue to grow and grow from here. What's some of the logic and reasoning behind that? Your clients are demanding it. Client expectations are driving adoption and wider use of legal analytics. Over 50% of the folks surveyed told us that the client expectations to use technology to gain a competitive advantage is a critical use case. Over 80% of users say legal analytics are encouraged or looked upon favorably by clients. The formula has changed quite a bit. Your clients are using data to select, evaluate, and benchmark their outside counsel. They, in turn, are expecting their prospective outside counsel or existing outside counsel to use data to make those more informed decisions to impress them and to optimize the outcome on their behalf. Over 98% of users say legal analytics have improved their law firm's performance. So being able to not only use the data and use legal analytics, but to be able to connect the dots on their success, on their improved performance. So being able to understand and determine a strategy as it relates to a particular court or judge. One, for instance, that always stands out as we're having these types of conversations is what happens if your case gets assigned to a certain judge and then that judge had to recuse themselves or gets randomly reassigned You spent a lot of time, energy, and resources going down a certain path. But that's out of your hands if a judge recuses themselves or gets reassigned. You have to reassess where you are. And being able to use legal analytics to do that accurately and effectively and efficiently has changed the game quite a bit. A couple more data points here regarding our survey. So what are the top 3 uses for the business of law? And when we think about legal analytics, as I mentioned earlier, lawyers are using legal analytics to win business and to optimize outcomes. These are the top 3 use cases for both sides of that conversation. To be able to effectively and profitably price matters and give realistic expectations on how long it might take. Your clients are asking you a lot of very critical questions over the course of a case or prospective matter. How long is the case going to take? How much is this case going to cost? Those are 2 of the very critical questions that legal analytics are being used to answer. Because there's that kind of anecdotal experience that we like to call anecdata, and then being able to connect the dots with your anecdotal experience and a certain judge's or a certain party's more holistic experience is how you're able to use the data to compete and win. Being able to gain competitive insights, as I mentioned earlier, talking about early case assessment and determining case strategy. And this is data that we're using here in this conversation. We're a data-driven organization. This isn't myself or anyone editorializing this data. This is what our clients and users are telling us. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the data and how can legal analytics help your firm today, help your practice today. Okay, so we talked about pricing projects earlier. Competitive intelligence for pursuing new business. Being able to effectively demonstrate your areas of expertise, which helps you differentiate your service offering as a competitive advantage to your clients. Lateral hiring. Okay, if there's certain scenarios where you want to look at an attorney's book of business, what their outcomes have been, you could use big data and legal analytics to get those insights within seconds. As we think about how to use the data from a practice of law perspective, we can see how the data is used at the high level, which I talked about earlier. But if we unpack that a little bit, we can start looking at data to predict likely outcomes of strategy to help you draft more effective arguments, to use data to, within seconds, understand the landscape regarding an expert witness, to assess your own performance. Our organizations we've had thousands of conversations. Oh yeah, we get 92% of Apple's litigation business. Okay, and then we look at the data and the data suggests something different. So being able to assess your own performance, your book of business, and compare it to what your clients are doing and how they're doing it and where they're doing it is a great way to use data to drive towards growth. Here's a couple of screenshots and a couple more specific for instances here. So as you think about understanding the behavior and being able to craft an effective strategy, not only as it relates to your case, but setting expectations for your clients. And we can see here, Kemp & Kemp is a small firm on the West Coast. and they do a lot of employment work. So what we could do here is use legal analytics, more specifically timing analytics, to get a very quick, accurate, effective sense of those key events or key milestones in their employment cases and how quickly or not those events or milestones are being reached. So we could see here that they've been involved in 145 employment cases. 28 of those cases reached summary judgment, median time 659 days. Only one of their 145 cases reached trial. 112 of their 145 cases terminated. What's the median time to termination? So these timing analytics are a critical component to your various formulas. What should our motion strategy be? What should our case strategy be against Kemp and Kemp? Do their cases typically settle? If so, how quickly? Do damages get awarded in these types of cases in which Kemp and Kemp is representing the plaintiff in an employment case? Right, so we can get the winning edge here by using data to assess and predict the various behaviors of the key players in our cases. When you think about key players, one of the most important players is the judge that we're in front of. Right, so in this hypothetical, we're looking at Judge Carter in the Central District of California and his consumer protection cases. Okay, so I talked earlier about the timing analytics and being able to answer questions in real time that your clients have, like how long is our case going to take? How much is our case going to cost? And then the next really important question is, are we going to win? Right, so being able to dive into data to see how do certain cases resolve themselves in front of a certain judge? Or how can we use data to more effectively inform our summary judgment strategy or our motion strategy in general? So in this scenario, we have a consumer protection case in front of Judge Carter. And we can see he's been involved in 527 cases, consumer protection cases. We are showing you the metrics of 427 orders issued by Judge Carter. So we could see very clearly Judge Carter has a 38% grant rate on summary judgment motions. As you're informing and advising your client on a certain strategy, and they ask you, what's it going to take to have an effective summary judgment strategy here in front of Judge Carter on his consumer protection case, we can now use data to anchor our response there. Our response there is that Judge Carter has quite a bit of experience with summary judgment motions in his consumer protection cases, and Judge Carter has a 38% grant rate. Okay? Now, your client's going to say, okay, what do you think? Should we go down this path even though we have a 38% chance of success? Or should we pivot and more effectively use the outside counsel dollar spend that you're talking to them about? Maybe pivot off of a summary judgment motion strategy and think about another strategy that could be more effective to your client and yourselves. If we did want to go down that path, we could click into this data and we could see those motion chains in which Judge Carter granted summary judgment. So when you think about analytics, legal analytics, it's getting those real-time actionable insights into the data that you can apply to your matter. If I was live in one of the tools here, I could click on this number 6 and get those 6 motion chains in which Judge Carter granted summary judgment, so we could see precisely how the argument was framed and what was effective or not. So a lot of different ways to leverage the data here. Okay, continuing down the Judge Carter talk track here. So we looked at a high level. What are his tendencies as far as granting or denying various types of motions? Now we can use legal analytics, more specifically in the form of language analytics, to help you get a sense of what language, what cases, what other judges does our judge most frequently cite to. So again, we could see these beautiful, insightful charts and graphs in which Judge Carter most frequently cites to what language, to what cases. So we're helping build out that strategy at the various levels of those conversations that you're having. Okay, I talked earlier about getting an understanding of the landscape of your various experts. Legal analytics allow you to know within seconds if a judge has previously excluded the testimony of your expert or the opposing expert. Okay, so all this data is out there. And if you think about what we're doing, we're taking all this data and we're bringing it through the lens of legal analytics, which ultimately helps you think about data visualization. Right? So we could see overall challenges in this outcome analysis for Dr. Chevelle. Right? So we could see what type of doctor Dr. Chevelle is, and then we could see within seconds, has a judge previously excluded the testimony of Judge Chevelle? So really, the underlying theme here to all of these examples is this data is out there. It's out there in various pockets and buckets. And what legal analytics allows you to do is think about all that big data that's out there. I think my perspective, being in the legal industry for 20 years, is that big data, that term should have been coined through the legal industry. With all the massive amounts of data that exist, whether it's through the lens of litigation or news or various transactions. It's the epitome of big data. But being able to effectively act on that data is where legal analytics comes into play. Recent news trends. Okay, we're looking at some analytics here regarding Facebook and their recent news trends. Are there correlations between news trends and a company's litigation risk? You bet. There absolutely is. So being able to tie together those loose ends of all the different articles and the impact that it has on a company's risk, super critical. Facebook or imagine any one of your clients being able to understand their news trends and what that would look like to help them get in front of any potential risk. How can we use all this big data to author more persuasive arguments, knowing how our opposing counsel have specifically argued similar matters? Right, so in this, for instance, we're going up against Franklin v. Azar and Associates. How have they argued similar matters in the past? Right, all these arguments, all these documents, all this data presents itself. But again, thinking about the legal analytics workflow and how we could use all this underlying data to make our arguments more persuasive, getting the sense of anticipation and predictability is what you're able to take away from all this big data with analytics. So, how do legal analytics impact an organization? we have a tremendous amount of data here. And as you saw the 6 or 7 slides, the diversity of the use cases, the diversity of the underlying data, and the diversity of the actionable insights that you could take away through legal analytics allows law firms of all sizes, solo practitioners, AmLaw 10 firms, and hundreds in between to benefit from analytics. Okay, so we could see how a partner might use it, how an associate might use it, how business development and knowledge management might use it. But what we also see, given the uniqueness of every law firm that we work with, again, whether it's Latham or Kirkland or Ray Mort, solo practitioner in Texas, and hundreds in between, we know that the benefit goes across various personas in these firms. Yes, some firms have larger kind of teams within their firm that help with business development and knowledge management. But within seconds, a solo practitioner can use legal analytics to put together that pitch deck, to understand the various trend analysis. So the key is thinking about how legal analytics has transformed all these industries. It has transformed and will continue to transform the legal industry to help you make those more informed, data-driven decisions to help you win the business, optimize outcomes on behalf of yourselves, of your clients, and your organizations. And there's a lot of different areas of expertise that LexisNexis has in this realm. And I thank you all for your time going through the presentation. I'm going to pause, take a deep breath, and address some of the questions and hand it over to Ellen to help monitor the questions.
Thanks, Neil. We do have some questions pouring in. The first one, is the data for state courts as robust as federal?
It all depends on the various analytics tools that we're talking about. The easy answer is no, but I would say it all depends, right? Because federal data is very uniform. It's PACER, and the uniformity of it makes it a lot easier to extract various outcomes from that data in a more uniform way. What we're learning is that all the various states and the various county courts in those states have data in different forms. And some are a little more accessible than others. Some have more rich and robust metadata, right? The data on the data, essentially, to allow us to bubble up those analytics at the state and county court level. So it varies on the use case, it varies on the solution, but generally speaking, the federal data will be more uniform and a little more rich because of that.
Okay, and then another question. This one looks like it's kind of specific to the Kemp and Kemp slide. It says there are interesting statistics here, but how does this information help counsel?
I'm sorry, which slide was it, Ellen?
The one on Kemp and Kemp.
Okay. What was the back end of the question?
They were wondering how this would help counsel.
So the counsel opposing Kemp and Kemp is my guess. Is how I'm interpreting that question.
I'm not sure. It doesn't specify.
Okay. Well, it gives opposing counsel an idea of what their areas of expertise are. For example, looking at that data, I only saw, if I remember correctly, there was one case out of 145 that went to trial. So you could take away from that snippet there that they don't have a lot of experience with their employment cases in going to trial. So that might play a role in your strategy. It also puts together ideas of how they handle their cases and whether or not cases are settling quickly. So we're able to see the cases that resolve themselves, the cases that settled, and how quickly they're settling or not, to allow them to figure out what their tendencies are so we can anticipate accordingly.
Okay, and here's another one. What are the benefits for firms that work with federal agencies like USCIS who are not involved in litigation?
So there's a lot of different use cases outside of litigation, but being able to know from, I'm not exactly sure what USCIS is, but being able to use analytics from a bill legislation perspective, to be able to look at transactions, at clauses. So there's a lot of different transactional, non-litigation based use cases that would benefit various government organizations. I know off the top of my head, I can't rattle off the names, but there are a lot of major government organizations that do use these analytics because they are involved in litigation, obviously, but also for regulatory matters. There's a lot of different use cases outside of the litigation realm too.
All right, here's another one. Are there ways to check judge reversal rates on appeal?
Yes, there are. Again, it's in general, there's ways to do that. There's different products in the LexisNexis ecosystem that can help more effectively with that. But that is a major area of growth as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there from a legal analytics perspective. That's my personal opinion on that.
Okay, there's a few others trying to get situated here. Are you combining data from different sources, including competitors, to provide insights?
So in certain instances, we are. Generally speaking, I would say yes. There's if I'm understanding the question correctly, I would kind of bundle that up in like an API data feed type conversation. And I would say in general, yes. There are opportunities where we're doing that. It's important to be able to map up and connect the dots between what does an organization or law firm know about litigation, how does that compare to what kind of the world knows about it, and then being able to take in other sources and being able to leverage that and repurpose that internally is very popular trend right now.
Okay, I think you kind of touched on this one a little bit, but I'll reiterate. Is the available data limited to civil matters, and is federal criminal case data available?
So again, it depends on the specific solution. But I would say in general, the answer to that is yes, but it all depends on the specific solution in the Lexis ecosystem.
All right, this one is kind of specific to Tennessee. So let me know if we need to pass this on to one of our consultants. And it says, we're in Tennessee. Usually this kind of information doesn't seem easy to find. Do you have suggestions?
In Tennessee in particular?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk a little bit at the high level about kind of the district courts, federal district courts in Tennessee, and that's something that is readily available that I could speak to. I would suggest to get it more granular than that, to get a consultant involved, but I think we could take that offline with that specific questioner.
Okay, sure. All right, here's another one. Lexis seems to have made some significant investments in analytics. How is Lexis bringing all of these together?
That's a great question. Lexis, I've been with Lexis for 16 years now, and data visualization and analytical insights has been a cornerstone of the Lexis strategy for years. And Lexis has made some really sound investments over time to bring all these various kind of components of legal analytics together. So, for example, Lex Machina, which actually owns the trademark for the term legal analytics, was acquired 6 years ago from Lexis. Ravel, and now known as Context, was acquired by Lexis. You think about companies like IntelliGize and StateNet. These are sound acquisitions that were made to round out the analytics, and these investments were brought on to round out the analytics messaging and hit all those key areas of law outside of litigation specifically. And Lexis has recently released a new platform called Lexis Plus. And if you think about Lexis Plus and the productivity and the ecosystem around Lexis Plus, and being able to use that one kind of dashboard view into all of these tools is the strategy and where this is all going.
Okay. So here's another question. This person, they specifically practice in Phoenix, Arizona, but I think this question could be answered a bit broadly as well. How do I access more information on judges and opposing counsel?
So then there's a lot of information on judges and opposing counsel. When we think about those actionable insights, it's what is a judge's or opposing counsel's tendencies, and that starts from being able to quickly understand and assess from a volume perspective how many cases has a judge been involved in. It's like ours. If there's a lot of data there, then you have to position yourselves one way. If there's not a lot of data there, you have to position yourselves in the matter a totally different way. But being able to see what the tendencies are across cases like yours allows you to dig in and piece those puzzle, put the pieces of the puzzle together to allow you to most effectively go down your strategy path, knowing and anticipating what the judge and opposing counsel are going to do. So there's a lot there, and definitely might make sense to set up a quick conversation to talk about what we could do to help there. Maricopa County is a big area of expansion, as well as the federal district court there. So there's some pretty good conversations to be had there. And I think we'd all be curious to learn a little bit more about what types of data might be interesting outside of what we've already thought about too.
So here's another one. Are there any initiatives underway to determine how specific LexisNexis products are impacting, I think it's BD, so I'm thinking big data and pricing?
Maybe business development and pricing? I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. So can you repeat the question one more time, please, Ellen?
Are there initiatives underway to determine how specific LexisNexis products are impacting BD and pricing?
Yeah, we definitely do various surveys to gather this information over the course of many years and many conversations. We've been told specifically that using legal analytics through Lexis has allowed us to acquire this new piece of business or to more effectively deliver an outcome. And we have so many different sound bites from partners at all different size law firms saying, because we're able to use legal analytics, it has paid for itself for many years to come. So if you think about these different types of matters and how lucrative they can be to a law firm, and being able to use data to get them those new matters to more effectively optimize the outcomes of those matters and tie that back to their investment in LexisNexis legal analytics and our technology certainly helps. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make those one-offs publicly available and tie them all together, but that's kind of the way our consumers think about the data to help them justify the return on their investment.
So we have one more that's calling back to a specific slide in the presentation. This is the slide regarding Judge David Carter. And the question is regarding that slide, does that 38% grant rate apply to plaintiff motion or the summary judgment or defendant motion for summary judgment?
That applies to all of the motions, for all the summary judgment motions in front of Judge Carter for his consumer protection cases.
Okay.
So, yep.
And then here's another one. Are there preset query packages to do these types of big data analysis?
In some instances, yes. In other instances, I would say work with the various product specialists to help put those queries together. It's not a lot of heavy lifting. It's pretty intuitive to set up the query, and then we set it as a favorite or as an alert, and the theory then becomes we start pushing data to you based on that query at hand, based on those combinations of criteria that are of most interest to you for that specific query.
All right, I think this is the last question that we have that's come in. Can legal analytics be used by solo attorneys?
100%. We have so many solo attorneys using legal analytics in practice now, and we only see that space, specifically that space, growing. Clients are demanding it. Local, if you're thinking about a local counsel scenario, lead counsel is using it and demanding it in certain instances. So the pressures to use it are increasing. But also, I would also turn it back to the specific practice. What are you looking to achieve as part of the practice? What types of cases are you involved in? What types of cases do you want to be involved in? And that's what's tying together the use of legal analytics at the solo practitioner level. But it's a very hot area there, and it continues to grow, and will continue to grow as we see solos and duos spinning out of mid-sized firms, large firms to start their own practices, and having that data at the ready.
So another question just kind of came in, and since we've got a little bit of time, I wanted to send it your way. Is this a standalone offering, or do you have any integration with third-party software?
So I would say, for purposes of this high-level conversation, this is a standalone. These are standalone solutions that we're talking about. It doesn't mean we wouldn't be interested in having one-off conversations about other integration points. That's a good question. We hear a lot of questions regarding APIs and data feeds and being able to map up LexisNexis legal analytics, big data with other sources. So I would say more to come on that.
All right, it looks like we've got to everybody. So thank you all for joining in on our webinar. We're going to send out the recording after the event, so be on the lookout for an email from us later this week or early next week.